Zayan Faez was a 30-year-old Iraqi soldier who was given leave after his gallant actions during a concluded war in 1960. Although he was wounded in the war, he fought bravely and was rewarded with a medal and a lump sum as a prize for his heroic act. After a 6-month-long sojourn protecting the country, he traveled back to Hillah's hometown to meet his wife, Rowah, and 5-year-old daughter. He even bought Falafel ground bean fritters from Baghdad to present to his daughter, Amal. However, when he got home and was welcomed by Rowah, he didn't see Amal rushing out to his embrace as the kid used to do. Upon asking, he discovered that Amal was down on a sick bed. She had been ill for the past 2 weeks and was taken to several hospitals in the locality. With not much money, Amal couldn't be hospitalized, so she is being treated at home. Zayan quickly rushed inside and took her daughter to one of the best hospitals in the town, where she spent 5 days before she became hale and hearty. During her ailing period, Zayan promised her that if she stayed with him, he would fulfill her wish. Amal reminded her dad about his promise and told him about going on a vacation. Before mentioning any place, Amal quickly reminds her father that they aren't going to Karbala again. No visiting of shrines. They should try another experience. Zayan had no choice but to follow his daughter's lead. He asked her where they should go, and she said a bar or beach. Rowah, who had been overhearing what the duo was discussing, also seconded Amal's opinion. She added that despite her age, she had never witnessed such an immense body of water. She only saw those on their television. Zayan reminds them that he isn't rich enough to sponsor a flight to a coastal town, which makes Rowah suggest traveling to Kuwait by land. The trio packed their traveling bags for a week's vacation in Kuwait. They boarded a bus going through the route. After spending some hours, they alight at the park, very weary. Zayan asks around for a hotel nearer to the beach and at the same time for the middle class. Fortunately, they were directed to one and lodged into a room. They had nothing much to do in the city, so they headed to the beach the next day. Kuwaiti was quiet and calm, with the inky sounds of waves crashing at the shore. A slight wind sent trembles over their bodies as they walked along the sand. There weren't a lot of tourists at the beach when they came, so they had time to pick a good spot to set up their picnic mat. After having breakfast and taking some time to rest, Amal took out a kite and began running around with it, watching it soar in the wind above her. After running around for a while, she went back to her parents and they built little sand castles and stuff, all in a bid to make the vacation splendid. They all sat watching as the tide destroyed the castle. Zayan went to the coastline and sat with his feet in the water. Their waves splash onto him. His body has gotten used to the cold water as it sweeps over his feet occasionally, and the initial trembling sensation is gone. Zayan felt his sorrow moving away from him and found his mind so calm. Rowah came to meet him and rested her head on his arm. It's been a while since they sat together again. The couple looked into the vast ocean with clothes moving as fresh winds and waves glided toward them. After a while, Rowah revealed her plan to swim in the water, and he asked her husband to join her. Zayan showed her his injured leg, which couldn't allow him to swim as he would be in inexplicable pain and danger. Also, someone needed to stay with Amal from wandering into the bubbling beach. They came to the beach as early as 7 a.m. An hour later, tourists were packed in the area and having fun. Zayan called Amal to sit with him while her mom entered the shallow water. He played local sand games with his daughter and occasionally checked on his wife in the water. Rowah remained mostly in the shallow parts, rarely staying from waist-deep water. But after a while of enjoying the cold sensation of the water, she swam across a stretch of water around 7 feet deep. By this time, Zayan had become deeply engrossed in his game and argument with Amal and failed to check on his wife. It was, however, too late when he remembered because his wife had disappeared from the water. Despite being injured, he stood up instantly and called on Rowah but did not answer. Rowah, swimming alone and facing the shore, remained oblivious to the shark stealthily approaching from beneath. In a swift and sudden attack, the shark clamped its jaws around her, swiftly dragging her beneath the water, leaving her no chance to scream. Water forcefully went down her throat, which hurt like hell. She frantically struggled and raised her head to the water again, which made Zayan see her. As he attempted to enter the water with the predator, one of the tourists at the beach held him down. His resounding yell of his wife's name had made tourists gather around the area, so they quickly stopped him from joining the death struggle. So he watched as Rowah struggled to free herself from the shark's mouth. Lifeguards hadn't started work because it was still early in the morning. After a few minutes, the shark ruthlessly tore her apart and swiftly retreated into the depths of the water. The surrounding water transformed, becoming a gruesome crimson shade as it absorbed the tragic scene. Zayan stood holding Amal, and he had turned pale from the shock of the attack. Amal observed the unfolding events with a sense of apprehension, realizing that the outcome would have adverse consequences for her. Some minutes after the attack, an ambulance and the lifeguards arrived. Zayan and Amal were taken to a hospital to treat the adverse symptoms of the shock, as it could lead to death. A specialist search team scoured the water to recover Rowah's body, but her remains were later seen 50 yards from the shore. She was buried at a cemetery before her husband and daughter were discharged. Zayan didn't even bother to ask for her remains. It would only lead to tragic consequences. He is ready to accept his new role as a single father, which made him resign from the army and open a food truck business, even though they lived in the coastal city of California. The Coombs family, consisting of the father, Adams, the mother, Evelyn, and their 2 children, Av and Peter, could not find the time to visit the city's popular tourist attraction, the beach. Peter, being a boy, yearns to try surfing on the water, but his parents won't allow him to go alone. He has no choice but to pray for such a day the whole family will go. Fortunately, in the summer of 2007, Adams was promoted, and he also succeeded in buying a permanent family home. With these tangible accomplishments, Adams suggests they celebrate it by visiting the beach during the weekend. 15-year-old Peter couldn't stop counting the days. He was very glad about the development. They planned to go on Sunday. So on Friday, Adam took some time off work so that he and Evelyn could go to the grocery store and get everything they would need for the beach trip. They bought many things for the family day, such as snacks, refreshments, meat, etc. On D-Day, Evelyn was busy cooking while her children helped pack the refreshments in a large cooler box with ice. Once the food was prepared, they carefully placed it in a large box with plates, a spoon, and a fork. They packed everything into their family vehicle, and within minutes, they were en route to the beach. The seawater shimmered under the warm sun, its beautiful blue hue captivating the eye. As they arrived, they noticed a few people scattered along the beach. Some played beach football while a few kids were building sand castles. There were also people swimming in the clear water, enjoying the cold feeling of the ocean. Immediately, they alighted from the vehicle. Peter was very excited to go straight into the water, which had noticed and told him that it was lunch first, and then he could swim all day. The food was incredibly delicious. It was an amazing meal of chicken, egg salad, and shepherd's pie. After eating, they washed it down with cold juice. After lunch, they relaxed under a huge umbrella before Adams declared it was a fun time. They all rushed into the seawater and dived in. The water was cool and wonderful, so Peter kept enjoying it. After a brief time in the water, Adams decided to swim back to shore, followed closely by Evelyn. On the other hand, Peter and Av continued surfing the water. With young blood in him, Peter challenged Ave to a swimming competition, which she agreed upon. Peter glided through the water like oil, leaving Av behind. But he didn't know he had entered a banned surfing destination. Satisfied that he won the race, Peter chased the big waves, circling the water. After some hours, he became tired and began swimming back ashore. However, the distance was significant, with him being approximately 150 yards from the shoreline. Little did he know that an 8-foot-long tiger shark was lurking behind, poised for an attack. Before he could react, his blood stained the water, creating an eerie watercolor scene that sealed his fate. He gave out a desperate cry for help. His frantic yell caught Ave's attention. As she turned her gaze toward the water, she witnessed a stark change in its color. She quickly called on her father, who rushed into the water to save his son. Ave scampered ashore and ran to her mother's embrace as she was visibly shaken. The beast attacked Peter's left thigh and calf and lacerated him fiercely. He first experienced the stinging pain, so he pulled his leg to see what happened. But he couldn't pull it easily while the pain intensified. After he succeeded in changing his position, he saw the aggressive predator, and by that time his blood was flowing out. While screaming for help, Peter tried fighting off the shark as it mauled his leg. His dad caught up with him and held onto him while he kicked the predator. He kicked hard at it while Peter punched it with his power while groaning in pain. The pair kicked and punched for a while, but the shark didn't let go. Peter's hands were bleeding and mixed with sand, but his hopes were still intact, giving him the adrenaline to continue. After kicking for a while, Adams tried to pry open the shark's mouth so that his son could be free, but his hand got scratched without him being successful. He began punching at every part of the shark's head. His punch at the gill affected the beast, and it released its grip on Peter. Adam pulled at his son and dragged him out of the shark's jaw. Peter's flesh was tangled with the predator's teeth, making him scream painfully as his dad pulled. Fortunately for them, Evelyn called lifeguards who came with 2 boats, one to rescue them and drive ashore, while the other chased at the shark. Peter was quickly rushed into a waiting ambulance circled by tourists. While being transported to the hospital, Peter was pleading in pain, "God, Jesus, don't let me die." Peter underwent surgery because of the vicious wounds on his leg. The shark bite was very deep, affecting his muscles and vessels, which made his family concerned about his predicament. Apart from the surgery, he got 10 stitches on his hand as teeth scrapes were found from the shark's attempt to chew it. Adam's hand, battered from his valiant attempt to strike the creature, was also tended to and administered medical attention. He didn't even mind his injury, but prayed for his son's recovery, as the doctor said Peter could have died any longer. Adams had no choice but to report back to work, so Evelyn and Abe stayed with him till he was better. All his middle school classmates also visited him on his hospital bed with gifts and get-well-soon cards. After 3 months in the hospital bed, Peter was given crutches to aid his walking. In addition to his physical injury, Peter was assigned to a rehabilitation facility to aid in the restoration of his leg's normal function. Being a resilient and strong-willed child, the emotional impact of the attack did not significantly affect him. Other than the physical injury, he was doing well. He said he wouldn't stop swimming at the beach because of the attack, but probably wouldn't venture out as far again. Kim Min-suk was a 22-year-old son of a Korean billionaire who tried his best to escape being conscripted into the army in 2005. His dad controlled 20% of South Korea's economy, so he thought escaping would be easy. However, the Constitution is above everyone, and he was caught with many other actors in his country faking illness. Through his dad's connection, he escaped imprisonment and enlisted in the army. That is the only way. He was to spend his time in the army, facing 18 months of hardships and rigorous training. Still, he had to endure it all because his dad promised him he could do whatever he wanted after that. After Kim was released from the army, he rented a yacht to party for a week. The yacht was on Jeju Island, so he flew with his friends. They hired strippers, cooks, and began their sail from the beach overlooking the Jeju Sea. They party hard into the evening before Kim goes onto the deck to watch the sunset while the waves crash toward the yacht. He sat with his friends, reminiscing about various incidents they had experienced in the army. Laughter filled the air as they shared stories and found humor in the challenges they had faced together. Kim's ultimate sanctuary lies within the waters. He would have loved being conscripted if he had been sent to the Navy, but he spent all his time at the front line. He believed the weather at the beach is the most quarreling of all places in the world. Within a moment he sat, relaxing lazily on the deck, allowing the foamy mist from the rampant ocean to spray on his face lightly, as though it was the touch of a feather. The sun begins to set in the distance in a sleepy, unhurried fashion. It was one of the most beautiful sights since being caged in the army. Then suddenly, the sky turned wild. Lightning hurls itself across what was once a tranquil heaven. Thunder booms while the atmosphere removes unwanted moisture. Kim let the rain drench him for a while before heading in. When coming on vacation, Kim hired an avid skier and snorkeler named June to teach him everything about skiing and snorkeling. After teaching him the basics on the deck, June entered the water with Kim for practice. After falling into the water several times, Kim could stand well on his skiing board. He started slowly and then began gaining speed. Being a fast learner, Kim quickly mastered the art of skiing and even challenged June to a race. Although June defeated him by a wide margin, he was incredible for someone who just started that day. He practiced a little bit before calling it a day. The next day he was up early with plans to master snorkeling as well. June was his instructor, and after donning the snorkeling gear, they dived into the icy water. Before entering the water, June told him that snorkeling is similar to swimming, but you will have a diving mask, a snorkel, and a swim fin. So he incorporated his swimming knowledge and got along quickly. After being underwater for a while, Kim raised his head coincidentally with June and told him he wanted to search for fresh abalone to give his mother as a present. They instruct the sailor to follow them while searching for the sea delicacy. The duo went underwater for 30 minutes looking for the creature. They even found a handful when the water atmosphere distorted. June, a meter ahead of Kim, became the victim of this ugly incident. A great white shark sunk its sharp teeth into his body. June felt something come down on his legs like a giant vice and then crushed his back and chest. Unable to shout underwater, he wiggled vigorously to call the attention of Kim, who became terrified. And instead of rushing forward to save his compatriot, he rose from the water. Meanwhile, the others on the yacht have been calling them for 10 minutes, but they couldn't hear underwater. One of the females on board noticed a dorsal fin gliding around the yacht. She just shrugged it off, knowing it could not harm the enormous yacht. Her countenance changed after she remembered June and Kim were underneath the water. She called on the rest, and they yelled out Kim and June's names to no avail. When Kim laterally raised his head, the sailor sailed over and was helped into the yacht. He kept panting while thinking about what had happened. Despite their fear, they were not courageous enough to enter the water and rescue June. They stood there, frozen in terror, helplessly watching the distressing scene unfold. June was well versed in his knowledge of sea creatures, so he knew he was bitten by a 12-foot white shark, which he couldn't fight off. After Kim escaped, the fearsome predator bit more forcefully into June and began shaking him violently. Instead of struggling to free himself, what June did next was astonishing. He suddenly went limp and played dead to the beast. It may be one of the worst decisions ever, but June had to take a risk. As a result, the shark carried him 16 feet into the sea before releasing him from its dagger-like jaw and swarming away. After staying limp for another 10 minutes, June looked around slowly to check if the beast was still lurking around. With no sign of the shark in the vicinity, he mustered the strength to swim upward. However, as he propelled himself through the water, waves of pain shot through his body from the sustained injury, causing him to silently groan. He was sighted from afar by the yacht, and they quickly sailed to him and dragged him out of the water. One of Kim's friends, a doctor based in Seoul, swiftly assessed his condition and discovered 20 tooth wounds spanning his chest. Urgently, the doctor stressed the need to reach a hospital without delay. The yacht's speed was pushed to its limits, and within a matter of minutes they successfully reached the shore. June was transported to a hospital in Jeju Island, receiving over 200 stitches to repair his gaping wound. Kim canceled his vacation to stay with him till he was discharged weeks after. Kim felt immense gratitude towards his friend for alerting him about the danger when he himself was the victim, providing him with the precious chance to escape unharmed. Kim's dad also appreciated June's effort in saving his son, and he was rewarded satisfyingly. The stitches remained on June's chest, but it was the genesis of his wealth, so he carried on with good spirit.